Hey, welcome back. Look what we got here. Today it's about lithium batteries. Stay tuned. What's going on? We are back. We're finally back in the garage. We're finally back in the shop getting to do some things we wanted to do. Now, I've been asked so much since the last video of this, of the full walk around, why I went with AGM batteries. And really, I went with AGM batteries because A, I couldn't get lithium fast enough, and the build had to be done and ready so I could take off to the King of the Hammers. Well, that being said, I ended up having a lot to do all the way up to the night of the, or I guess the evening right before I had to leave for King of the Hammers the following day. So it took me forever to get everything done because of my crazy work schedule. And so what I did was I did have some 100 amp AGM batteries on hand that were charged and ready to go. So I put them in the system and let them go. And I guess I'll show you that right now. So everybody wondered a bunch of things like, A, how does it all work and how did it all fit in here? But you can see both of them are right here. And the reason being is I was trying to use both the footwells for the largest part of my storage items. Dry foods and stuff like that, and cooking utensils both go in two little cubbies, and then I have a utility cubby, or tote as you guys might want to call them, that I use for random camping items, lights, things like that. So this was more for my electronics to get them out of my way. That being said, that's why it had to be pre-built and ready to go before I left. Well, now it is, and now I have to disassemble it so I can put in the lithium. The reason why you want to go with lithium, I found 100 amp hours just like these, okay? Those 100 amp hour lithium batteries are 1280 watts, I believe, or watt hour, and these are far less. On top of that, it takes far longer to charge these. And if you know anything about the difference between a lithium battery and an AGM battery, and what's the hugest disappointment is an AGM battery, even though it says 100 amp hours, technically as far as charge usability, you can only use a max. If the battery's in good health and it's not super old, which, you know, it's been charged properly and hadn't been completely depleted a lot of times, because that degrades as well. But as long as it's a newer style battery, a couple years old, and it's been on a constant charge cycle, and you take it down to 50 and bring it back up, the usable watt hours in one of these AGM batteries is about 80% of it. So if you think about it, instead of having 200 watt hours right here, I really have something like 160 watt hours. Whereas when we change these out with the exact same form factor in lithium, I will have right at 200 amp hours. Now, it's almost 300 watt hours. It's almost 200 watt hours. So you can see there's a stark difference between these and lithium. That's why we're doing it. The number 2 reason is weight. These two guys right here combined are heavy. They're probably 160 pounds combined. The two lithium batteries probably don't weigh 60 pounds together. So, nevertheless, I said I would make this. There's lots of people that asked, so I'm going to run through this real quick and just show you how it disassembles, and then show you what I've got in it, and then get them replaced and get them on the road. That way you guys can understand, if you guys have ideas of building something similar like this, what it builds and what it looks like and what's in it, right? So, let's get her done. Okay, so like I was kind of explaining before, over here, that's where the batteries are housed, but at the same time, I put my winter jackets in there, and gloves and beanies and stuff like that. Anything that I or need access to when it's cold during the winter. And the reason why I do it over there is obviously I get out of the driver's door and it's right there accessible to me. And then this one would be considered my, we'll call it an electrical panel. And so I've got first aid in here, but then right here below, you can't see it yet, but you will. Right here below is all the electronics that go with it, and also my Renogy MPPT charge controller. And what I keep in here as well is these guys right here, and they're just a couple of race radios, and I'll show you here in a second. Just a race radio. by rugged radios, and I use these at like King of the Hammers and just about any other sporting event where they have comms that you can listen to for the race team. So sometimes it's motocross, sometimes it's enduro, sometimes it's NASCAR. But anyway, that's what else is in there. And then of course, like I said, my MPPT charge controller, and this takes power from the battery and then charges those once it senses incoming voltage from the alternating, meaning that the truck is started and running, and that if it starts to charge these batteries, it's not going to negatively take away from the actual truck starting battery. And then right here, this is kind of like what I use for just randomness, right? Let me get this out of here all the way. I got a camp chair and then tools. And so I have this tool roll and another tool roll that I keep in here at all times, and it also houses the 2000 watt Renogy inverter. That inverter is controlled by a switch right here, so at any time I can just throw it on. And I also have an outlet at the back of the truck, like you guys have seen before in the full walk around. And if you haven't seen that video and you want to see this in more in depth, if you go to my page, go to playlist and look for BroncLanders, and then in that you'll see an entire truck walk around. But I keep that in here as well. And the reason being is because it's not something I access. I've got power ports coming out of it, so I don't need to operate it in that sense. And I left areas down below it for it to breathe, and it also has the ability to breathe through the electronics panel. And that being said, everything is covered as far as connections wise. Nothing can run into something, nothing can cause a short. And then again, it gives this the ability to breathe really, really well. So that being said, let's just keep moving. The next thing we got to do is we got to disassemble this, take the last bag out, take this out, and then this is a piece of 1/4-inch stainless, and it runs the length of the truck from side to side. It utilizes the factory seatbelt belts at the ends, and then it's these 3/8 stainless screws go all the way through the wood, and then down into the body tub to help attach this to the vehicle properly. But that's about it. I really wanted to just do this because I've been asked about the actual processes of how it works and why I use this system and why I felt I needed it. And so this is pretty clear and shows why, because now all this stuff appears for utility. And I wouldn't have that if all this stuff was outside of it. I had the seats in here and I had to figure out where a wiring system was and a battery system and an inverter system. You wouldn't utilize all this for cargo. So now all of this is cargo area once the lids are down. So let's keep rocking and rolling. So now I think it's a better example or illustration of how it all lays out. So now I think you can see more clearly how everything's kind of protected and separated once it's inside and covered. So having these batteries, here's that clear piece I talked about. So when you open the center electronics button, you'll notice that this is like a false deck. So everything can sit on here, it just can't protrude down into the electrical connections. Kind of the same way everywhere else, right? So everything is secured and covered. That way, anytime anything's being touched, it won't be manipulated while I'm driving or moving around, and nothing is rubbed or scratched electronically. And so that's why I decided to go with this route, because it helps me best mitigate all of this electronics in the best way possible, secures it out of the way, and then again allows me to have an entire deck area or, you know, sleeping platform if need be to get this thing done. So I'm gonna get moving, I'm gonna get these replaced, and then go from there. Let's see what we can do. So let me get you in here. And so you can see it's the exact same form factor, okay? It'll be set up the same way, and it'll be run in series, and that'll be more than enough to do anything I need to do when we do go ahead and get the Ursa Minor camper on this and start doing solo camps out of the Bronco the way it is built now. This is what I envisioned for a long, long time, and it's finally coming to fruition. So let's get it tied in, and we'll talk about those batteries. Okay, guys, so you see it's all back in covered, and then they're all tied together. I will tell you this, I use blue Loctite on just about everything. The reason why is on trails, everything vibrates like crazy. And so how much nicer is it to know that once you put that stuff in there, it'll be at least in a scenario that it has the best chance of staying tight for as long as possible. Anyway, you see how it all lays out, and I'll give you this look, but now you can see across the footwell, this is what it looks like. And so that's what I'm most proud about. It works really well. And again, it gives me a flat surface up here. The totes go in this little area here, just behind this stainless piece of bracing, and they're even with the refrigerator. So this entire area is generally always open, other than I put my bag of clothes back here when I'm traveling. So yeah, it makes a nice place. Like if it's bad weather and stuff and you're tired, to just pull over and like push the bag all the way to that end and kind of just take a nap, which I've done before. So yeah, that's what we've got. So let me get this finished, get the tops put on, and then we'll talk about the batteries themselves. I guess we'll kind of talk about it now. We're in the back, you can see it. So I wanted to just go over the batteries real quick. The reason why we chose those is because lithium has a very particular way of charging, which means it can't be under voltage when it's charged, and it can't be too hot when it's charged, and it can't be too cool when it's charged. Well, most of the stuff we deal with in this kind of configuration here would be too cold. Meaning sitting in a truck waiting, especially because you guys know I do a lot of winter camping. So that being said, these batteries have a self-heating source in them, and that's critical for lithium. And the reason why I say that is because internally they have a sensor. If they reach a certain temperature below, which 32 degrees or below, it'll turn it off, and it'll not allow them to charge until they get above that temperature. So with a self-heating element, if they're in that range and they have a good amount of charge, they'll still maintain their specific temperatures to allow them to charge. And so that was one of the biggest reasons. Second, weight. Again, I told you the disparity. There's probably 100 pounds difference between the two AGM batteries that are 100 amp hour and the two lithium batteries that are 100 amp hour. Anyway, if you got questions, put them below. We can kind of go through them and go over that and explain to you even more in depth why we chose what and how many amp hours you think you need. But that being said, thanks for jumping back in. We have an update video coming up soon because there's still a lot left to do to this guy before he's ready for Bronco Safari in Moab, which is coming up at the beginning of May. Over at Expo West in Flagstaff, Arizona. And we may be doing something with one of the vendors out there in hopes to almost complete this guy. Ursa Minor is that vendor, and we're hoping to be able to maybe do some display stuff with the Bronco and a new Ursa Minor camper for the Bronco itself. That being said, everything else is coming around. We're missing some fenders that go front and rear and a hood kit. This thing's gonna be nuts, guys, because remember, we went that long travel Baja system. And so to complete the build, there's still some few things to go on. Some of it's over there in a pile, but then there's some that we're still waiting on. When the fenders get here, they'll go straight to paint. And so I encourage you guys to stick around. And again, share this content with your friends. If you guys like Broncos, give me a hug. If you like Bronco content, give me a hug. If you like battery and DIY solar setups like that, give me a hug. The reason why is that tells YouTube that you want to see that. Regardless of what it wants to show you, it says, hey, YouTube, I like this stuff. Show me more of it. And every time you open YouTube, it will. So anyway, thanks for sticking around, and I appreciate all you guys. Anyway, we'll see you in the next time.